Hello and welcome to another episode of Virtual Coffee with Ashish. I am Ashish. Today we're talking about testing for security in AWS. If you are a pen tester or someone who's starting how to do security research in a cloud, specifically AWS, or maybe even other cloud service providers, this could be a good podcast episode for you. Now, if you're coming in for the first time, the podcast would be live later. The podcast would be live over there later on. Clearly, I need my coffee, as I say. But I wanted to just start by saying, if you're here for the first time, check out the podcast link, and I'm gonna bring my guest in. But because he's special, I'm going. It requires a certain kind of music. And welcome, Pavel Zapa. How are you,
Hello,
man?
Ashish. I'm really, really good, and thank you for having me here.
Oh no, dude! Thank you for coming in. And by the way, for people who don't know, Pavel is awake late in the night for me, so I do appreciate that. I do appreciate. I'm sure the audience appreciates it as well. So I'm gonna try and get to the meat of it really quickly as well. But for people who may not know you, how did you get into cybersecurity?
So I was interested in cybersecurity for a long, long time, like since my university, and I started my professional career in IT support, but I knew that I wanted to work in cybersecurity. However, I wasn't sure about which branch of cybersecurity. So I tried to work as an internal auditor in a bank. I tried also to work as a threat analyst in IBM Security Operations Center. I even developed some definitions for next generation fuzzer. But finally, I found my place as a penetration tester, and yeah, so now I'm doing a variation of the pen testing cloud. Ashish, I cannot hear you. I don't know what happened, but I cannot hear you.
Oh, sorry, that was me. That was my bad. That was
Yeah.
on mute. Sorry, I was gonna say good day to Paul, and thank you, Casey. That's really kind of you, man. I was gonna say that's a really interesting experience for you to come into the pen testing space as well. But how did cloud and cloud security? Actually, it's a good question. What does cloud security mean for you?
Um, to answer you this question, I would prefer to start from answering the question, what is the purpose of security at all? And I
Hmm.
like the one definition that the purpose of security is to ensuring that your solution works as intended and only as intended. So going back to your initial question, what is the purpose of cloud security? For me, is a practice of ensuring that your cloud resources work as intended and only as intended. In other words, ensuring that there's no backdoors, exposed data, additional resources like cryptocurrency miners, etc.
Actually, that's an interesting one because, and that's probably one of the most important reasons why people do cloud security assessments as well. And I find it really interesting, right? When people say cloud security assessment, they always assume it's pen testing, but then there's a research side and all these other factors as well. Can you clarify for people when we say cloud security testing or cloud security assessment, what is it really is? What is it really?
Yeah. So in short, I would define cloud security assessment as a practice of ensuring that your cloud resources are safe. Uh, for me, every cloud security assessment should start from understanding how the cloud is being used by this particular customer, because every customer is using it a little bit different. So specifying what are key assets and what data you need to secure. So in my opinion, we should highlight four main pillars of the cloud security assessment. That is, the first one is the architecture review. So ensuring that there aren't any design flaws or unnecessary resources like mentioned extra EC2 instance with running cryptocurrency mining software. The second pillar is penetration testing of exposed services. So, for example, ensuring that there are no vulnerabilities in your cloud applications or there's no vulnerabilities in your serverless code. The third pillar of cloud security assessment is reviewing the monitoring. That is verifying that there is the incident response procedure and that you have the ability to detect and react to indicators of misconfigurations as well as indicators of attack. And finally, the last pillar of cloud security assessment should be the configuration review. So detecting any services misconfigurations, like detecting publicly available SQS queues or S3 buckets. But many people consider cloud security assessment as only detecting misconfigurations, but that unfortunately is not enough, because you will not know who should have access to what. You will miss any design flaws. You will not be able to react if any internal user make your data public, and if someone compromises your Lambda functions, for example, there may be no need for any misconfigurations because the attacker already has access to your cloud. So cloud security assessment is not as easy as just playing the button and running the automated scanner and then oof, I'm done.
I love the definition as well, because
Again,
a lot of people who
you
use
are
the
not audible.
cloud security posture manager,
I
they're
cannot
like,
hear you.
what? It's not just that?
Ashish,
Yeah. Yep.
sorry, I cannot hear you.
I'm definitely not on mute. Can you still hear me?
Sorry,
What about now?
still nothing. Something is.
Interesting. I wonder if the audience can hear me. Can you guys hear me?
Now cannot.
What? This seems to work for me. Oh wait, let me just check my my mic setting. One
Still
second.
nothing.
Hello? I can see it on my end. I can hear you. Oh, Paul, thanks for confirming. They can hear me, man.
Okay, so it's a problem on my side.
Damn. Yes, Louise, this will be recorded and will be on YouTube later on, and on LinkedIn as well. Can you still hear? Can you still not hear me?
Well, let me then change my headphones. Sorry.
That's okay. Funny enough, people can hear both of us.
Oh, now I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, oh, people could hear both of us. Yeah, so not sure what happened, but I'm going to retrace my step. Thanks everyone for confirming that. Oh yeah, white probably. Yes, thanks, Pablo. What I was going to confirm. I love your definition of the cloud security assessment, because any people who might be using a cloud security posture manager, I guess all the salespeople who do cloud security posture manager may have to rethink that, because it's only part of the problem that you're solving by saying you're scanning your configuration, and it doesn't talk about the design flaw in the architecture. And thanks guys for confirming again. And it doesn't really talk about the fact that, hey, this may be a genuinely required character of this S3 bucket that you have to have it open, but the configuration tool is like, no, this is bad. CIS benchmark is breaching, blah, blah, blah. So I do appreciate, I do love the definition. Another one that confuses a lot of people is cyberkill chain. And what does that really mean in a cloud context?
Yeah, so the kill chain term originally came from the military concept related to the structure of attack. And the cyber kill chain is a cyber attack lifecycle that helps to identify and prevent cyber intrusions. In other words, a cyber kill chain is a structure of a cyber attack, like reconnaissance, then delivery of attack, vectoring the access to make persistent access, and so on. So there's the MITRE attack framework, which is a great knowledge base of adversary tactics and techniques observed in real-life attacks, used, for example, to detect the activities of real-world APT groups. Now, APT is an abbreviation of the Advanced Persistent Threat. Such APT group tend to use similar tactics and tools to do a reconnaissance and then deliver the next phases of the attack. Now, what you can do with it, this knowledge gives us information how such attacks looks like. So how should we protect them? How should we protect ourselves from them, as well as how to discover them on the very beginning of the attack and simply stop it? So I recommend everyone to Google the cloud matrix on the Mitri attack website and take a look what are such attacks tactics. And you will learn the next steps an attacker may do, like how it is possible to escalate privileges. What are the ways of persisting an access in the cloud? So where an attacker may put the backdoor. And finally, how an attacker may erase the fingerprints of the attack, like removing all logs and so on. So this knowledge may give you ideas how to prevent such tactics. Like, for example, if you are using the AWS organizations, then you can use service control policies to deny such dangerous actions like removing your logs. So even if an attacker will escalate privileges to an administrator in this AWS account, the attacker will not be allowed to remove any logs. But please be aware that in Mitri attack framework, this is not a full list of such tactics, but it's definitely a good point to start.
That's very awesome. And I definitely recommend people check out the attack meter as well. I'll add the link in the show notes, because I feel sometimes it's the hardest challenge is to know a starting point. And exactly what you said, it's a great starting point to go into attack meter and see how do people do reconnaissance and how do people kind of find a way into cloud as well. So great answer, man. The more we talk about this, the more it sounds like threat hunting. So is threat hunting and cloud security assessment same?
Not really. So they are for sure different in the area of focus. So you can, for example, watch the Spencer Gibson talk regarding the differences in detecting the indicators of misconfigurations and indicators of attack. So cloud security assessment is focused on detecting such indicators of misconfiguration, while threat hunting is focused on indicators of attack. And of course, you're using different tools and approaches to detect them. So to give you an example, detecting publicly open S3 bucket is an example of such indicator of misconfiguration. While if you detect that somebody is firstly running the STS get caller identity to find out name of compromised role and ID of AWS account, then lists all your bucket names and then starts downloading all files, well, that may indicate for an attack, and probably such keys should be quickly disabled to stop further attack and start investigating what is going on.
Oh, interesting. So subtle difference, but okay. So it's the area of focus as well. To your point, if it's similar to threat hunting, if it's like different area of focus, and so our the way I see this is that would this be something that I need to ask permission for? You know how with the pen test you need to request permission, or I guess at least you used to request permission from AWS before you could request or do a research. Is that the same thing with this as well? That you need to ask permission from AWS before you can do any of this?
Nowadays, in short, such permission is not required regarding penetration testing of some common services like EC2 service, Elastic Beanstalk, Lambda, or Lightsail. I highlighted nowadays because some years ago it was required. So at the beginning of my cloud security assessment, I had to ask for permission. But that only shows how things are dynamically changing in cloud. So you should know, however, that there are some activities which are prohibited, like testing denial of service attacks or port flooding. And if you want to, for example, if you want to do a full port scanning of multiple Amazon IP addresses, that traffic will be quickly detected and rejected. So from the tester perspective, that will look like that this host is down or all the ports are closed. So if you're going to test a host in the cloud, then you should start from reviewing the security groups and take a look which ports are publicly open. For example, if your EC2 instance that you are going to test have open port, let's say 8080, but on your security group, there's only port 443 open, then you won't be able to interact with 8080.
Yeah. Okay. And to your point, it does make sense from a perspective of, is this, if AWS is allowing, I guess, EC2 and other services to be tested freely, that means obviously they have a lot more confidence and a lot more monitoring in that space as well. So if people don't want to get banned by AWS or their AWS account being banned by AWS, they probably should consider getting a permission if it's required for the service. I think we've been talking a lot about from a beginner perspective, because we have, I guess, both kinds of audiences. We've got audience which is, I guess, experienced pen testers as well. So from their perspective, they've traditionally gone onto on-prem, looked at web apps, and I guess ran what they would normally consider recon and all other kinds of strategies to kind of get some account takeover, right?
Right.
Is this something that transitions the same way into a cloud as well, or is this different?
In general, they are similar, they may be similar, but there are some differences. So as I mentioned, there are prohibited denial of service attacks. So when you're testing on-prem web server, then probably that would be a good idea to test it against, let's say, slow HTTP attack. But in cloud, that is not going to work. And if you do it, your IP can be even temporarily blocked. What actually happened to me once, because all the traffic is going from one address from our VPN, and we were doing some extensive tests, and then when we tried to anonymously access the S3 bucket, which is publicly open, then I got the 403 error that sorry, access denied. Mm-hmm. Another difference are the consequences of some vulnerabilities. And I will give you a good example, I think so. So, for example, if you have the server-side request forgery vulnerability in the on-prem application that is isolated from the rest of your network, you probably won't do much with this vulnerability. But the same SSRF vulnerability in the cloud application may result in accessing the instance metadata service, what means an attacker may get AWS access keys of the role attached to this particular EC2 instance, giving an access to some of your internal AWS services. And I read one of such reports on HackerOne website, which is, by the way, a great source of knowledge about nice hacks and real-world hacks and vulnerabilities. So there was reported an SSRF vulnerability, but it was marked as informational because there wasn't any serious risk, and of course, the researcher didn't get any bounty for his finding. And then the same application was migrated to AWS with, of course, the same not fixed vulnerability. So another researcher just reopened this ticket because now it was possible to access the metadata and get those keys and exfiltrate some data. So now the same vulnerability was marked as critical one. And the other example of differences can be something what I found several times during pen testing an application, which was actually the hybrid that was hosted on-prem but used some AWS services. And it occurred that there were hard-coded AWS access keys in the JavaScript or somewhere in the traffic, and under the hood, I discovered that all users are using the same AWS access keys. Now, from the application perspective, your user was able only to see his or her files. But when you saw the traffic that is going to the server, you could exfiltrate those keys and then use those keys to access the bucket and get and put permission to access all the files, including, of course, other user files.
Wow. You've already mentioned quite a few things, which, by the way, CIS benchmark or any of the other cloud security posture management tools that are out there that give you the thing that you can secure your cloud. Like, for example, it doesn't look for shared access keys between users, like things like that. It's I find it really fascinating that you've already mentioned a few things which are usually considered best practice, but something that worked really well and was a low bug in a on-prem context suddenly became a critical one in a cloud context, which I
Yeah.
love the example, man. I think it's really interesting. By the way, for audiences, if you guys have any questions, feel free to kind of drop it in the comment, and I'm sure Pavel and I would be happy to kind of address some of those as well. I find it fascinating. So if I'm a pen tester, and I'm looking at my application, which is in a I guess in a cloud environment, and I'm trying to pen test it. So I guess there would be cloud native angles and cloud. Well, some people may not know what cloud native services are. Are there any cloud native services? You can define if you want cloud native, what is cloud native, but are there any services that you recommend people start with in terms of where should they start researching?
Yeah, well, that would be for sure the most known probably as free service. So yeah, there are still a lot of issues related with this service. However, also quite common but much newer is, for example, the Lambda service. And I made a research that I uploaded the malicious npm package to the official npm repository. So basically, the package was responsible for renaming the objects in S3 bucket. However, uh, silently, the same package was verifying if there are if among the environment variables there is AWS access key ID. And if so, then this key was exfiltrated to my server because by default, Lambda function role that is attached to Lambda function keeps the AWS access keys in the environment variables. And by default, all the traffic is egress traffic, so outgoing traffic is enabled. So I just put it without announcing it to the world. But after 4 or 6 weeks, there were around 500 downloads of this package. And on my server, trust me or not, but
What?
there were
500?
uh, 20 such keys. I collected only the AWS access key ID. So with the AWS access key ID, you cannot do much harm. But so I was just doing it for the educational purpose.
Yeah,
But
sure, sure.
I have to say it, right?
Yeah, that's right. This is all for
but
education purposes, people. We are warning you. Do not try this at home.
yeah, don't try it at home. I've just, I can guarantee you that it works. However, this unfortunately shows that there are still people who blindly run the code found in the internet without verifying it. I know that it is not possible to verify all your code we're running, but dependency poisoning is for me a, a great attack vector.
That's a good segue into my next question as well, by the way, because I love the example that you gave about the serverless, because I think you have a talk on this as well. If you don't mind me,
Yeah.
I'll plug in the talk that you've had on your serverless one on the show notes as well. But for audience listening in, I definitely recommend checking out Pavel's couple of talks that he has done, where he's kind of elaborated a lot more on these examples with screenshots and everything as well. So I recommend you guys do that. Now, since we're talking about common attack, like dependency poisoning is a great example. But are there any other common attacks that you feel like? Obviously, you mentioned S3 bucket, you mentioned dependency poisoning. Any other that you recommend that, say, any pen testers or probably bug bounty hunters who may be listening to this can look at as the first few avenues to start with in cloud?
Well, there are obviously a lot of such attacks, but well, um, regarding recommendations and detecting the tools, detecting the misconfigurations and potential vulnerabilities, I can recommend and strongly suggest to try like Prowler, which is actually it is scanning your infrastructure, and it automatically verifies if you have like SQSQs publicly available, meaning that any AWS user can just can see the message, push the message to this queue, etc. And it detects any AWS CIS benchmark misconfigurations, but also even more. And it is actively supported, so please check it. Another thing that you can you can check from the cloud security assessment perspective, the IAM policies, the identity and access management policies. Um, Without understanding how the cloud is used, then you cannot do much because you don't know what permissions should have which principle. But if you know it, then there's a tool that is called cloud splaining. And I really like it because it will verify all the permissions that allow for example, privilege escalation. So to give you an example, if one of your developer, for example, has permissions to attach any role to a Lambda function, so he has just a wildcard in the resource section, then such developer can attach the administrator policy to Lambda role and then execute arbitrary action like creating new IAM user with the administrator access. So basically, this user can do whatever wants. I've also I've also developed my own tool that is called Dumpster Diver. Basically, its goal is to detect potential secrets in large volume of files. So if you have multiple files in one of your S3 buckets, but you are not sure if there are any secrets, obviously it is quite challenging to scan it manually. But it is possible. For example, I was delegating this job to people in the AWS Mechanical Turk service. I don't know if you know it, but in Mechanical Turk, you can delegate actually any job, like, hey, check the internet to find me the best price of this particular product. But my task that I left there, of course, and you are giving the price for your task, and people are taking it or not. So so to compare the effectiveness of dumpster diver and the manual reviewing, I delegate the task to verify the 5 GB of data to I think 5 of people, and they reported me. All of them reported different findings. But I could compare, human beings with the my own tool, which is called Dumpster Diver. So check it out. Soon it will have new features like the verifying the regular expressions, but I will not spoiler anymore.
Yeah, no, all good. This is pretty good. I think Prowler definitely, and I think Kay mentioned here that he's used PMapper as well. So you mentioned cloud planning for IAM. Have you had a chance to look at PMapper as well that Kay recommended?
Yes, however, it is not so supported anymore. I think so, or
Oh,
the last support was long time ago, and I faced some issues, and I saw on the GitHub repository that it was reported this issue, but I didn't want to dig into this. I've from my in my opinion, the cloud splaining is more is well has better reliability and better findings.
mm-hmm.
But
That's
sure,
pretty.
the best way to choose your own tool, which best works for you, is trying both of them. So try both of them, compare the results, and choose the better one.
Yep, but I love so right tool for the right job.
Exactly. Yes.
I've got another question from Vineet here. How hybrid cloud environment affect the scope or assessment for pen testers?
Um, Affected scope assessment. Well, that I would say that needs to be specified at the very beginning. Like the different environment requires different tools. However, you can use like Scout Suite, for example. That's another tool for automatic for detecting misconfigurations, and it works for Azure, GCP, and AWS as well. So you can use like one tool for detecting such misconfigurations. But however, I would suggest to firstly to do the threat modeling session at the very beginning before starting testing, and then define all the workflows, potential attack vectors, and the entry points.
It's pretty good. And to your point, a threat model session is always good to at least have an understanding of what the basic threats are. It's a great exercise, even if no one has done it before. Hopefully that answers your
Exactly.
question, Vineet. The next question that I have for you, and I think it's great that you mentioned Prowler, Cloud Spanning, Dumpster Diver as well. Well, you mentioned Mechanical Turk. What's a Mechanical Turk? Is that, and I don't want to say it's like a person who wakes up in Turkey. Is that what Mechanical Turk is?
Not really. Well, the name came from because long time ago there was like the machine, and somebody said that this machine is can beat any chess master, and actually it was winning with the a lot of great check masters. So and it was long time ago, like so there wasn't any IT in that age. But in fact, there was a person who was sitting in this machine, and there was a grandmaster in this machine who was playing against all those people. So Amazon Mechanical Turk
Right.
is a service, yeah, that you can simply delegate any task to human beings, and they accept it or not, depending on how many you are paying for your task.
Cool. Well, so I guess that's where Airtasker and stuff came in as well. So so thanks for sharing that because I was just curious as to what's a Mechanical Turk.
Yeah.
Considering perfect. I think Vineet has his answer as well, so that was very thankful for. I was going to ask, my next question is more about, we kind of spoke about the tools, but is there a way that pen testers can be on top of these? Like, we're obviously talking about architecture, that just by
Mhm.
checking CIS, it's not good enough. There is obviously services. How do you repeat and rinse and repeat kind of a thing? How do you keep on top of this kind of a thing as a pen tester, or even as, so I could put two angles to it. One, I'm listening to this as someone who has a web app or an application on cloud. How do I be on top of this day-to-day assessment thing? Like, what should I be doing? Is there a recommendation that you have for this?
Well, I would again start from threat modeling session, and you cannot automate it. You have to meet and just discuss. Very often, the threat modeling session is very informative, even for the developers, because usually that there is no one single person who knows exactly everything, how this cloud is used, and actually what they are using in the cloud. So then, on such meetings, very often those people, just who work on a daily basis with their cloud, they don't know about all the things that they contain and how they are using it. So then, if you are looking like on the whiteboard with all the AWS accounts, what are the relations between the each of the AWS account, then you can see where are your weak points. So that, for example, would be good for architecture review. But regarding monitoring, then you need to know to what are you trying to secure. So what are your key assets? What to monitor? There isn't a silver bullet that, hey, you should always monitor this and this and this and that, and then sorry, but the half of it we've never used it. So
Oh my God. I think,
and
sorry, go on now. Go on.
yeah, and regarding penetration testing services, well, I don't have also an easy answer. Just, oh, do this and this and that, and you're done, because that's years of experience, as well as knowing how things work. Very often the applications use different technology stack, different protocols. Uh, so you cannot learn it in just in one day. Um, Also, regarding like testing serverless, you usually have the code is executed outside of the server. It is run in the Lambda function container. So it would be probably to have a good infrastructure for testing out of band vulnerabilities. So, for example, in burp suit, you have the burp collaborator, where if for example, Lambda has the vulnerability in your code, and such request will go to the burp collaborator, and then you have the proof that actually you were able to get out from this Lambda, and there is something you should dig in. And regarding configuration review, well, use the tools that I've already mentioned. Try it, and of course, if you have any problems, doubts, just call me.
Definitely reach out to Pavel. I was gonna say, considering you've done this for such a long time, where do you see this going? Like, where is the whole cloud security assessment, the way it's being done? Like, what are your thoughts on where it's going?
Yeah, so I see a trend that more and more companies start deploying the resources and infrastructure as code. So I think the cloud security assessment will evolve to be more focused on verifying the Terraform or CloudFormation scripts. Uh, there are already available tools which may help you to do such assessment of such scripts, like, for example, Chekhov, which is kind of static analysis tool for infrastructure as a code. And another interesting tool that you should take a look on is SemGrep. SemGrep, which allows you to specify queries like regular expressions, and using it, you can audit multiple scripts. So imagine that you are going to do assessment of hundreds of accounts, and all you receive is the Terraform scripts. Then you have to automate it somehow. So SendGrab and defining rules. What are you looking for? So, for example, if there are any security groups with open ports, uh, then you can, using this SendGrab, you can very easily get in the output all the publicly available ports in your security group, and then investigate it more. And another trend that probably will happen, or rather it already is happening, is using the multi-cloud. So that's another challenge. If your organization is using some services from AWS, some from Azure, some from GCP, then it's challenging how to ensure security of all those services without complicating the whole process of deployment and using the cloud.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you've nailed it on the head with the two trends that you're noticing, because a lot of the previous guests that have come on the show, they've all mentioned this whole thing that multi-cloud, it's great idea, and it's great idea for people who have enough experience in the team. But if you don't have, like, say you're primarily AWS, suddenly you add Azure or GCP, but your team is primarily AWS, like they have to learn the whole new technology plus be updated on AWS as well. It's a hard job. It's not
Right,
easy.
right. I'm
Yeah.
trying here. We are talking mostly. I'm talking mostly about AWS. However, also, of course, I also had to try the GCP and Azure, and some concepts are very different. And you can, as an example, I recommend you to watch one of my presentation regarding serverless,
Mhm.
because there I'm comparing the different approaches of each provider regarding the serverless security. So there, in the concept, they are the same, but there are teeny differences from the security point of view, and you need to resolve them differently. So it's not just
Oh,
the toggle
sounds
that
like I need
you
to bring you back again for just for serverless security as well. That would be awesome. People who are listening in can vote on whether we should bring back Powell for
can.
serverless security as well. I've got a question here from Kanishk, and I think the question is more relevant for I guess once you've taken over, but if you want to answer it, because I think it's most obviously you're in the environment, you have a bunch of passwords to work with. So I guess, do you mind answering this question?
Well, sure.
So,
Of course, I was using it, but usually when we are finding password hashes, we are notifying the customer about leaked hashes without need to crack them. So cracking passwords is not really what I'm doing. But yeah, I know that using the cloud computing is generally opens completely new doors regarding password cracking, because now if you have such power that the computing is actually a resource. The computing is money. Now, if you can overtake few EC2 instances, some people may say, "Hey, so what? So what? What can you do with it?" Well, actually, you can do.
yep, yep.
There,
I
there, yeah.
sorry, go on.
Well, there was a great story regarding Olin data. So they were pretty good, and they were interviewing people, and one of their interview process was to solve a task, and then some EC2 regarding EC2 instances. So the interviewee had to uh, write a script that is solving this task. But one of the interviewee, and of course, well, if you want to try this solution, they gave those interviewee the EC2 permissions to their test AWS account. Now, they gave this permission without the specifying what type of instances they can run, how many of them, and in what regions. So one of the interviewee uploaded his solution to his GitHub repository. And if you know that the free GitHub repository is publicly available, so soon the attackers just took those keys. They spin up the largest EC2 instances in every region. And once they saw it in the all in data company, they said that, well, it was Friday. So they said, okay, we will take a look on it after the weekend. And after the weekend, the bill for usage of AWS went to more than 130,000 of dollars just for a weekend.
Wow.
And of course, they were running it not just to do the attackers were running the cryptocurrency mining software on those largest instances.
Yeah, I'm so with you on this, Pavel, because I think people underestimate it's literally a data center that you're getting access to, right? When you get access to an AWS, it's not yet you have one machine. It's a whole data center that you got access to. You can pick up, if you don't have the right controls, you can just basically start doing, I don't know, G4 compute, or that's why there are so many crypto mining incidences that you keep hearing about. But that's a great example, by the way. So an example, maybe that's why GitHub made the repositories, the free ones as well. Now you can make them private. But it's the same thing as S3 bucket being public and private. People still make it public, and you're like, do you really think through this before making it public? Or
yeah,
I find it hilarious, man.
There's actually one nice feature that GitHub made, and I didn't know it, but I did a little research, and I exposed on my GitHub repository. I exposed some keys to verify what are the next actions of the attacker. And I was really confused that I got the logs 6 minutes after exposing those keys. So I thought that, hey, that's pretty long for automatic bots. But
Yeah.
actually, GitHub, once you uploaded it, GitHub will give the 5 minute delay of giving it publicly available. So that's 5 minute slot for your action. So you are notified in the first minute, you are notified by AWS, your keys are compromised. AWS started automatically, and that's also quite recent news, that they are automatically adding some quarantine policy to those keys. So the attacker cannot, still can do a lot of harm, but not like that. They are denied IAM actions, for example.
Wait, so if I got this right, so the access keys you had put in GitHub detected it, AWS notified you about it. It's only after 5 minutes that it was available on the internet for the bots to pick up.
Exactly. Yes.
Wow. Damn. Well, there you go. It's a good sign of collaboration there, I guess.
Yeah. And it's collaboration in a very good direction.
Yeah. That makes me think in terms of, are there any interesting attack techniques that you've seen? I mean, I guess either to dodge these or any interesting techniques that you've seen in the space recently that you've been like, oh yeah, that's a good one.
Oh yeah, I have one, maybe not so recent, but one of such tech is the DNS exfiltration. So many people don't know that the Amazon DNS is using different infrastructure which is out of your control. For example, imagine you have the EC2 instance with attached security group, which completely denies any outgoing traffic. Okay, so it looks like isolated. And many people will be sure that there's no way to exfiltrate any data from such instance. However, if an attacker is able to upload a malware to such EC2 instance, it can use the Amazon DNS to exfiltrate some data outside of Amazon network. Basically, if I'm the owner of the example.com domain, my malware on this EC2 instance can put the secret as a subdomain of example.com. So although the egress traffic is denied and completely blocked, I can put base64 as a base64 encoded secret. So let's say it is blah, blah, blah as a subdomain. And now the
Yeah.
Amazon DNS
Yeah.
is trying to resolve this blah, blah, blah .example.com, even if the security groups are blocking any outside traffic. So it will, if you know how the DNS works, this blah blah blah.example.com will go to my name server,
Yeah.
and of course then I can decode it. So any secret I can, I can exfiltrate from that. So the
Oh, that's really
recommendation would
interesting.
be use your own DNS, and then you can simply disable in the VPC settings to the hostname resolution. But you can,
Oh,
as you see, that this is something that you will find it in the AWS documentation. But how many people are aware of it?
yeah, yeah. That's a great one, man. I think it's the same thing that a lot of people talk about. And reminded me of another example where the orphan DNSs as well. A lot of people would bring up CloudFront or start up a DNS service and forget about it because they moved on to a new one because that was dev or test or whatever, and then they just leave it. It was I think the example was that those DNSs are available for any other AWS account to kind of hook up like Route 53 or whatever. And I'm like, wait, so but this is much more cooler than that. So I'm like, okay, you definitely win the money on that one. I think I want to change a few more gears as well, because I think we've been talking about how do you do it, what attack tools do you use, and what are the attack patterns. But for people who've been listening in for this long, and I'm like, okay, this is something that I definitely I'm keen on. I want to learn more about this. Where does someone like this start on this kind of a thing?
Um, my recommendation is to get your hands dirty. So learn by doing. You can play around with with many capture the flag games, for example, and I can recommend you my own one, which is called KRK Analytica. Uh,
Oh,
I
nice.
don't
I'll
want
put the
to,
show notes link as well. I'll.
yeah, I don't want to spoiler the plot, but all you know, it is running on our company infrastructure,
Mhm.
and but there are, and if you have any problems with solving it, then you can find the walkthrough of it on my Medium blog. But there are other capture the flag games I should also mention. First of all, it is the Cloud Goat project, which is awesome project. Basically, you are deploying the vulnerable services to your AWS account. Um, and again, the full walkthrough of it can be found on my blog. And regarding other challenges, I also recommend you to check out the flaws and the flaws part 2 made by Scott Piper. It is also great. And regarding infrastructure as a code, there's also a great project which is called TerraGoat, and there you can also try the other tools. So there are a lot of free available tools. Just instead of watching Netflix, just play around with that. Um,
Oh, yeah, the God.
yeah, and also, but that's some challenges. And also, if you want to stay up to date, there are a lot of security researchers on Twitter or on LinkedIn. I'm following many of them, and I learn a lot of them, a lot of from them. And recently I realized that I learned a lot because I started sharing my knowledge. So, that's also a good point. You know something, learn others, then you will see that you need to dig more into the subject. Someone else then is filling your knowledge, like giving you some feedback that, hey, there are better ways to do it. You can try this, try that. So really uh, share your knowledge.
I cannot agree on more on this because that's why the podcast is here as well, for me to be able to share with people, and it's people like yourself and others, man. I think I learned so much, just like the common examples as well. But the more we speak about, the more it sounds like people should have an understanding of how the cloud works as well. Do they need to have like a cloud certification as well? Is that accurate assumption?
Yep. Well, I would suggest to anyone to do some certifications because it standardizes your knowledge for sure. Um, and but does it give you and knowledge to perform the cloud security assessment? I I doubt it. It will give you the fundamental understanding of concepts, which is actually necessary to go further. So certifications are really great starting point.
I think to that point, certification is great to know what a service can do in a way that they want you to learn. But as a hacker or as a pen tester or as a security assessment or researcher, your mind is because it's the same as on premise as well, where we've been taught, oh, this is how the server works. They're always talking about positive scenarios that server A talks to server B. No one talks about what's in the middle, if there's a man in the middle, or if there's an encrypted connection. Like there's a lot of things even in that space. So to exactly, I love what you said, man. I think certification is great to have an understanding of what that space is, but people who are listening, and don't forget to put your hacker or Penchester hat on to go, how would I break this service if I were to do this? Or to your point earlier about fuzzing as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a mindset, and also everyone who is in security, I think that has such mindset. So everyone is like sales are talking about how great product we have, and the security guys are saying, hey, but this may go wrong, this may go wrong, this may go wrong.
That's right. I mean, in a way, it's not a bad thing to be a bad person in that context, because you're just trying to make sure that the service is safe to be consumed by people. And this makes me think: Are there is there something that people are not talking enough about in a I guess a cloud security context? Is there something people are not talking about enough about?
Hmm. Well, I still find too little information about detecting and reacting to attacks.
Mm,
So, if you find any detailed resources how to build good incident response process from scratch, then please share it with me. And I
yeah.
think that should there should be more space into this topic.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think I've got a guest coming in next month as well to talk about this, because instant response in an on-premise world versus a cloud world where your servers are dynamically increasing to 200. You mentioned earlier about the pattern you're seeing where you just get Terraform scripts to do a pen test of.
Yeah.
How do you where do you go with that? And but then multiply that by 200 Terraform scripts. It's not just one or two Terraform script, because no one just has one Terraform script. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's a very interesting world, man. I've got one final question that I want to take over as well. Is it says, could you recommend some? Kanishk has a question. Could you recommend some certification for beginners?
Sure. So my path was into the cloud was taking AWS Architect Associate as the first one. That will give you a good understanding what services are in AWS, how to work with them. and how to configure the VPC, how the networks work there. Really, really good, give you the good fundamental basic understanding. And then I went through the security path. So I made the AWS security specialist certificate. And also I found it really, really really nice because I learned a lot about some concepts that I've never focused before. So those two, made those two, and yeah, you will be good. You will be satisfied.
And would you also add, if I may, just focus on one cloud to begin with? Don't think of doing all the clouds.
Yeah, if you have time, do the same for every provider, and you will be even better.
Yeah, that's right. So just copy and paste the same method for each cloud provider, or pick one and just deep dive into it and become that person as well. So now this is really great, man. So I'm going to switch gears again, and this is going to be non-technical questions because I would love the audience to hear a bit more on the other side of Pavel as well. So just three questions, not that many. What do you spend most time on when you're not working on testing security in cloud and technology?
Well, on my vacations, I'm still doing it. So that's sometimes I think I'm sick about it. But yeah, I love reading. I'm reading a lot or listening audiobooks. And recently, also, I'm very keen on sports. So I lost like more than 10 kilograms. So that's kind of new life now for me.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think a lot of us are learning new skills and new things to enjoy with our lockdowns, I guess, as well. So, good on you for trying that, man. Say, and is there something that what is something that you're proud of, but is not on your social media like LinkedIn or Twitter or anywhere else?
Of course, that's my daughter. She's
Oh,
really
nice.
awesome.
That's cute.
Without a doubt, I'm proud of her.
You should
Yeah.
you should show her this recording later when she's older. I see your daddy said this thing because I love that about internet because these answers are recorded forever and suddenly like you can show your kids in the future that hey look at this answer that I gave about you how much I loved you there. Last question.
Once
What's
she
your
grew
favorite?
up, for sure.
Sorry.
Once she grew up, for sure, I will show her that. Look,
Yeah.
it's
Well.
your daddy.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. What and the final question? What's your favorite cuisine or restaurant that you can share with us?
Oh, I love fast food. So I love burgers and pizza. So nothing,
Oh,
very.
I was thinking you would say pierogies.
Sorry.
I thought you would say pierogies, the dumplings.
Uh, Not really. That's in fact that's a favorite Polish dish, but yeah, well, I
You're more
still
of a burger
prefer
person.
pizza and
Not
burgers.
that I want you to be a pierogi person, but I love a good burger any good day as well. So burgers, American food is kind of like what you like.
Yeah, exactly. I love
Oh,
it.
nice. I love a really mean burger any good day. I might just say that it's like, yeah, you're definitely making me hungry, man. You're definitely making me hungry. Like just a sort of like oh slow cooked meat. Oh yeah, that'll be good as well. Barbecue, that would be good. That I'm gonna stop talking about food before I get even more hungrier. But for people who want to reach out to you for American food recipes, oh sorry, for for knowing more about how to do security testing in AWS, where can they find you on social media?
Uh, on Twitter and on LinkedIn, I also write some articles on my Medium blog. So feel free to reach me. I would be very very happy to answer you. Maybe not so fast because I'm trying to effectively manage my time, but for sure I will answer you if only
And
I know the answer.
oh yeah, and I was gonna say, and on all those social media, is your handle still Pavel Rzepa?
Not really. It's Rzepski. So R Z
Yes.
E P S K Y. Yeah.
And
Thank
I will put that in the show notes as well, so people can easily find you as well. And
Perfect.
Dude, thank you so much for taking the time, and I do appreciate you staying up late for me for the show and for all the audience members as well. So thank you so much for taking the time out. I really appreciate it, and I think the audience did as well with all the questions coming in. So I'm super happy, and I'm looking forward to bringing you back again, man.
Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed this time.
Oh, thank you so much. All right, everyone, we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.